On Wednesday, the European Parliament issued a resolution on what claimed to address the deteriorating situation of human rights in Egypt, in particular the case of the activists of the Egyptian Initiative for Personal Rights.
And in related news, the Youth Coordination of Parties and Politicians also commented on the European Parliament decision on human rights, on the human rights situation in Egypt, denouncing the false information it contained, which was fragmentary from the context and did not reflect the reality of the current situation in the country. In a statement, the Coordination Center affirmed its rejection of the fallacies contained in the statement of the European Parliament, asking where did the Parliament give itself the right to evaluate others, whilst it was the first for it to focus its attention on the EU countries and deficiencies of the human rights situation over there. Also, they indicated the deliberate selectivity in choosing facts, cutting them out of context, was a clear politicization of the files of rights and freedoms, which is the largest evidence that this step by the European Parliament is, of course, on the face of it, carrying humanitarian slogans, but in its core is political, geopolitical, and has other multifaceted reasons. And we're now joined over the telephone by Ms. Marcel Samir, member of the coalition, the Youth Coordination of Parties and Politicians. Ms. Marcel, a very good afternoon to you, ma'am.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Hello. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Thank you very much for joining us, Ms. Marcel. Now, the Youth Coordination of Parties and Committees condemned the European Parliament's decision and their statement regarding human rights situation in Egypt. Could you tell me a bit more about this latest move?
Okay. The Coordination Committee of Parties, Youth and Politicians expressed a strong reservation on the false information that lacks of context in the statement. The resolutions also reveal the attempt of politicized human rights and freedom in Egypt. And it had a hidden context. It's the core of the statements hold the political and geopolitical and economic interests. We describe it as a pressure card against Egypt. And also its lack of parliamentary professionalism. The European Parliament's part forgets about the principle of separations of powers. Egypt's foreign policy is firm in respecting the principle of non-interference in the international affairs of other countries. And we also want them to respect our internal affairs. We ask them to follow up with to commit to the United Nations General Assembly resolutions that concern non-interference in the international affairs of states and the protection of their independence. We described this, the European Parliament statement, that's using a superior tools and lack of parliamentary experience.
Right. Ms. Marcel, also the Coordination Committee, as well as the Egyptian Parliament, criticized the European Parliament's intervention in issues related to the Egyptian judiciary, which is very important as well.
It's independent, and we respect the authorities in Egypt. The legislative and executive authority respect the judicial authority. Egypt respects international law. Egypt has any country respects the laws. We ask them to ask the government about the information they published in the statement. They didn't had any government statement to reply on their accusations.
Yes, absolutely. And one final question, ma'am. The Egyptian state, of course, has a firm foreign policy, non-intervention policy respecting the principle of non-interference in internal affairs of the state. And of course, on the basis of reciprocity, it does not accept that any external party interfere in its internal affairs. How important was this statement released by the coordination?
This statement was a reminder to the European Parliament that there is international laws to be followed.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Mrs. Marcel Samir.
Thank you.
Member of the Youth Parties and Political Politicians Coordination Committee. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insight and for joining us on today's edition of Cairo Local Time. And of course, we need to continue the news making the headlines, and we move to the latest Egyptian ministries and government